Hey everybody, Derek Brown here with BEATBoX SAX, bringing you another Tuesday tutorial. Today I'm going to be talking about a thing I call air puffs, which is basically getting a sound of air going through the horn like you just heard in the intro. This technique is a lot easier than a couple of the others I've been talking about, like the slap tonguing and the double tonguing. So if you were getting discouraged with those, take a break, and here's something else that's a lot easier that you can kind of get back into the groove of things. Using these air puffs, this isn't anything brand new. Sax players have been doing this definitely for a while, but I find that it's definitely a helpful and kind of a cool tool that I can add to my arsenal of beatbox things, because it's another percussive, truly percussive, non-pitched sound. Now the challenge with these air puffs is to amplify it as much as possible, because it's not as loud as like the pops and the slap tongue. So ways that I do this, usually when I'm playing these air puffs, I finger a low note on the sax, like the low B flat, C, or D. The reason I do that is to use the full length of the horn kind of as an amplifier, or like a megaphone, to shoot it out the bell. If you have notes open, of course sound will escape out of those keyholes and it won't just come out of the bell. And you'll find that doing this, it is important that the sound is going through the horn, because if you're ever playing in front of a microphone, that's where the sound is being picked up from, not your mouth. So if you're making the sound outside of the mouthpiece, it's not going to be picked up. And that's true for all of these effects. So that's a really important thing. So that's why I finger a low note. Another thing that I do is when I have the mouthpiece in my mouth, I make sure to allow air to seep out either the sides or the top and bottom. And I find this helps for two reasons. One, I can just shoot more air through the horn and without sounding a normal pitch like we normally do when we play the saxophone. So I can shoot enough air through that it doesn't vibrate the reed because it's kind of being split. And then also that sound of the air being split up by the mouthpiece and escaping in different directions, I think that adds these higher frequencies to the horn. So yeah, so here's kind of what I'm going for. If you don't open your mouth at all and you only blow air, you're going to find that you can't do it as loud, and that you're gonna sound a note much more easily. If I do that with my mouth firmly closed around the mouthpiece, it sounds like this. It's really easy to sound a note, so that's why I let air seep. So you'll have to experiment with how much to do that. Now you'll notice I try to have a strong articulation attack at the beginning, so I usually do this with a ta or a ka. So or and I'm definitely blowing from down here. You want lots of air. Once again, if you're only getting a note to sound, you got to use less air, or try opening the mouth a little wider, let that air seep out of the sides. You can also experiment with more or less of the mouthpiece in. It's actually pretty effective with the mouthpiece out of your mouth. If you blow air right at the tip, once again, the air being divided kind of gets that nice sound. But I like to do, when I'm doing this beatbox sax, I like to have my embouchure as close to normal playing as possible, so that in the midst of any of my improvising, I can throw this technique in. So that's why I do it with the mouthpiece still in my mouth. So the way to practice that, of course, once you can get that sound and you can get enough power, is to alternate with normal notes or with pops or any of the other techniques we've been talking about. So I would practice it like this. One last part to these air puffs is the idea of getting a sound when breathing in, so the inverse of this. I do the same thing with fingering and with the embouchure, so I have my mouth not completely secure around the mouthpiece to allow the sound of that air kind of coming into contact, being split by the mouthpiece. The goal is that you can make those sounds similar, but you can also use it as just kind of another air puff sound if you alternate it. Something like harder to get a full sound with the inhales, but you can work on it. Another way I do this is when I'm doing the hi-hat clicks that I've talked about in an earlier tutorial. If I breathe really fast, I can make it sound like it's just another one of these hi-hat clicks. This is something that beatbox musicians in general, just voice beatbox musicians, have been doing forever. That's how they can kind of keep that drum sound going without it sounding like they're stopping. They make their inhale sound like a percussive effect. So that would be doing something like this. Of course, practice that slow. And so forth. Then you can just keep going without having to have this weird pause where you take a breath. So those are air puffs. Hopefully that makes sense, and this is something you can quickly add to your set of tools. I will of course be back next Tuesday with another technique. So in the meantime, Merry Christmas and happy practicing.